We're now going to start with our Q&A session, the final session for this course. We'd like to give preference to the CME people taking the course. So if you could raise your hand when you have a question. And as people are doing that, I'm going to ask Barb if she would like to share some of the questions from the chat with us. Barb?
Here's the first one from Dr. Natalie Sadler. How do hearing aids with Bluetooth and glucose monitors, how do hearing aids with Bluetooth and glucose monitors that send data to a receiver often affect diabetes glucose levels?
That is an excellent question. And one of the things we've noticed with hearing aids is that if people who have two hearing aids, the hearing aids are communicating one with each other, and that's going right through the brain. This is not something that should be allowed to happen. Apparently, you can get a hearing aid that doesn't have Bluetooth, but they're difficult to find, and you have to order them specially. And regarding the glucose monitors that are, once again, using microwave radiation to transmit information, I'm deeply concerned that people who are electrically hypersensitive and who have diabetes will get abnormally high readings because they're exposed to the glucose monitor, the radiation from the glucose monitor. So both of these have to be reassessed and reevaluated by the manufacturers. And the more doctors who can warn their patients about this, the better. Barb?
I have two more just because I know one of them is going to be really quick. From Keith Bernston. Are endocrinologists aware of type 3 diabetes mellitus EMF effects?
No, it's something, I sort of came up with, and I was told that Alzheimer's is now being considered as a type 3 diabetes. So I've actually changed it from type 3 diabetes to type E diabetes, meaning an environmental trigger for it. And it could be not just dirty electricity, it could be chemicals in the environment, it could be radiation, it could be a lot of things that trigger the diabetes. And we need to know a lot more about this, obviously.
And maybe one more before you go to the hands up from Cheryl Hamilton. In our area, the wood electrical poles are being replaced with metal poles. If current follows the path of least resistance, wouldn't this allow stray current to flow to the ground?
Not necessarily, because the electric wires are actually attached to insulators. So they're not attached directly to the metal pole. So, but unfortunately, if they take the neutral and connect a wire from the neutral to ground, then it's getting into the ground anyway. And Cheryl has her hand up as well. Cheryl, I'll unmute you and lower your hand if you have another question to ask.
Yes, I do. Thank you so much. As far as the PEMFs with people who are electrosensitive, do you have any research regarding that can be provided?
No, I've got sort of anecdotal evidence, information. There are some people who are very sensitive and they can't use any PEMF technology. But as they begin to recover, and that is based on different therapies that they're exposed to depending on what actually initiated their electrosensitivity. But once they begin to recover, some of them are then able to use it and benefit from the PEMFs. And I noticed in the chats that one of the people responded and said, make sure that if you're going to buy any of this technology, that they have a good return policy, because if it's affecting you adversely, you want to be able to return that technology and get a full refund.
And then before you unmute me, do you have any research on the mineral content, especially in regard to iron in the body, that might be contributing to hypersensitivity?
I haven't followed that research, but there's some interesting things happening currently regarding iron. And if you have too high levels of iron, there could be a real problem. But I'm not familiar with that research as intimately as I should be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Barb, do you want to ask some questions? Oh, we have Natalie Barra Miller. I'll unmute you and lower your hand. Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. I've been interested in offering PEMF therapy in my clinic, but there are so many different devices out there, as well as the light therapy devices. Do you know of a source where it's kind of listed the different offerings and options and, pros and cons, and how do we decide as a physician or even a patient what to use?
Well, that's, sorry, I think Cheryl Hamilton is still being highlighted. So I don't know why, but so the question was, there's so many different PEMF therapies available that, it's hard to know which ones to buy and what to look for. My sense is that a lot of the PEMF therapies, almost irrespective of which ones you end up purchasing, will work to different degrees. They vary in cost, and so some of them are really cost prohibitive, tens of thousands of dollars. And this would perhaps be more appropriate for a doctor's office rather than for private use. They vary in the frequencies, the wave bands, all the different types of characteristics that we talked about during the first lecture in this course. And my advice is to get one that you think suits your ability to use it. Some of them are quite complex to use. The Ondimet, for example, the C-Kicks, these are more sort of high professional models. And some are really good for in-home use. The Centurion, IMRS, Beamer. So some of the other ones that are really very easy to use. And I would suggest that you, follow up with the company. There are books that recommend PEMF units, but I find that they're really stilted to the ones that they're promoting and getting financial benefits from. And so it's really important that you do your homework and try to learn as much as possible. But if they have a good return policy, you should be okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. We have some more questions. Any CME questions? Let me just scroll down. Okay, no, so we'll take Debbie Bauer.
Oh, I've got some in the chat.
Oh, well, let's take Debbie first and then we'll go back to you.
Okay.
Debbie? Oh.
Hi,
Debbie?
good morning.
Hi.
Thank you so much. This is a fascinating morning. My question, Magda, is specifically regarding to sensitivity that folks have to the filters themselves. I understand when they work for somebody, they're fantastic within a home or office setting, but what about when a person is sensitive extremely to the filters themselves? Any thoughts or explanation, any insights would be great.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, I've heard that there are some people who can't tolerate the filters. So when the filters are put into their home, they have a negative reaction to them. One thing I would like to know is how low did they actually get the readings? If they didn't get the readings below 40 or 50, then that makes sense because they're still being exposed to the dirty power. In some homes, there's wiring problems. And so if you plug a filter in or a light bulb or anything, when you have a wiring issue, you're going to create a very high magnetic field. And so you have to check for your internal wiring, make sure that it's appropriate and, get an electrician to test that. And some people are just too sensitive. They just can't tolerate a change in their environment. They respond, very slowly and poorly to change. And so what I would recommend is, well, you don't have to use the filters, obviously, and there's different filters that you can buy. I talk about the GS filters because those are the ones I've done research with, but there's green wave filters, and you can even get filters that you can put on your fuse box that are really powerful and usually quite expensive, like several $1,000s. So I usually don't promote them because of the cost, because these other filters will basically do the job. So once again, if you can get your money refunded, if you happen to have these filters and they're not working for you, just send them back to the manufacturer. Okay, you're welcome. Okay, Barb, do you want to ask a question from your list?
Here's one from Donna Ott. One of the physicians she knows recommends vitamin D light bulbs. Can we discuss this?
Vitamin D light bulbs?
That's what the question says. I don't know if you want to ask Donna.
Okay, no, I think I have a sense of what she means. You can now purchase ultraviolet light bulbs that emit at a very narrow wavelength within ultraviolet spectrum. It's 311 nanometers. And if you expose your body to this light for a few minutes a day, it will actually promote your body producing vitamin D, just like if you were out in the sunshine. And so in places where you don't get constant sunlight in the winter, for example, where you're spending more time indoors, then I highly recommend these light bulbs. They've been proven to be incredibly effective. You use them for a very short period of time each day, and they do not promote skin cancer. So they're not like the tanning light bulbs that you would get if you went to a tanning salon. They have a very narrow band. And so these are, you know, good light bulbs to promote health, particularly in the winter when you don't get enough sunshine. Another one, Barb?
Okay, scrolling back up here. From Cheryl Hamilton, how does rain affect the current in electrical wires?
Okay, I think we've had quite a few questions from Cheryl, but let me answer this one as well. When it's raining, the soil will become wetter. Obviously, it'll become more conductive. And so during periods of drought, farmers tend to have better luck if they have a ground current problem than when it's really wet. That's when the current's really flowing through the ground. And it doesn't affect the wires. It just, you know, gets them wet, but it doesn't really affect the wires at all. Okay, I'm going to shift to David Calderfield, and I'm going to unmute you. Try to unmute you and lower your hand. Okay.
I was wondering if you know if any insurance coverage covers this, any of these therapies. So if we wanted to use it in the office, are you aware of any insurance that helps with that?
If you wanted to use what, the filters in the office?
No, I'm talking about the PEMF.
Oh, is there insurance that protects you against
No, I'm thinking, do insurance carriers pay for patient treatments for PEMF?
Okay, in some jurisdictions they do. And so you'd have to find out what it is in your jurisdiction.
Okay. You didn't mention halogen bulbs in your presentation.
Halogen bulbs are very similar to incandescent bulbs, almost identical. Okay, let's go to Melky Jacobs.
Hi, yes, I'm really interested to learn a little bit more about the pulsed EMF treatment. Can you hear me?
Yes, the post EMF.
Oh, the PEMF, the pulsed EMF treatment. It sounds like, you know, really good short term, especially in terms of healing injuries. But I'm just curious, have any studies been done on it long term? I mean, I've known a few people who, I don't know if this is a coincidence or whatever, but they've gotten cancer and Parkinson's and other illnesses and had been using those and had no other risk factors. So I was just curious about the long term safety.
Okay, the only thing I know about long-term safety is with the TENS product, which actually produces an electric shock in your muscles, for example. It's used by athletes when they have muscular injury. And I think there's an increase in ALS among a lot of athletes who have used them a lot. Okay. So I have some concerns about TENS, the TENS products. I haven't heard anything about the other ones causing cancer or any long-term studies of them. But one of the things I think I forgot to mention is that if you have a PEMF device in your home and you have dirty electricity and radio frequency radiation, you're not going to benefit very much from that PEMF device. So you have to use these devices.
Waiting for the pharmacy to address the IV fluids.
Sorry,
have they done it?
Someone just came on. Can we just mute them? I don't know who it was. So basically what you have to do is do the exposure in a clean environment. If you're in a dirty environment, it's not going to have nearly as much benefit.
Well, and I think one of my EMF consultant colleagues does use the pulsed EMF machines, and she said it's very important to use it on battery and not to have it plugged in, because then you've got that whole exposure as well. And of course, just during the day and not all night long.
Correct. Yeah, I wouldn't expose myself, during the night for 8 hours of sleep. You use it for several minutes a day, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm. Thank
you. Leslie Weinstock.
Yes, my question is, I have a very fancy Bare, B-A-R-E, Rife machine. It uses light frequency, electrical, and radio frequency all together. And I also have dirty electricity. Is it, number one, what do you think of Rife machines? And also, can the effective or how, beneficial frequencies from the Rife machine override, the dirty electricity in the room?
No, the beneficial effects of Rife won't override the dirty electricity. They're, one's causing you a lot of stress in your body, and the other might be benefiting you to some degree. And the Bare light that you mentioned, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, so without the dirty electricity, what do you think of Rife machines?
With Rife machines?
Yeah.
I'm actually not a fan of Rife machines, but I haven't done any real research with them. I had a Rife machine in my lab, and we were testing it on different microorganisms. And when it was on, I felt really sick. So I decided to stop that research. But that's just me. And so I really don't have any other evidence that they're good or bad.
Thank you.
Tom, Yarema, you could ask your question, Tom.
Thank you. So with regard to information addicts, where this is a field that's been looked at from the broad spectrum of classical homeopathy with a near infinite number of frequencies to things like Noget frequencies. That's a really, really big spectrum of information. Where can we go to start finding some defining principles of informatics?
I've been asking the same question. I got into this looking at the harmful effects of all of this radiation. And when I found out there could be some beneficial frequencies, I was actually quite dubious about it. And I've talked to a lot of experts in the field, and I'm trying to understand how they determine what waveforms, frequencies, pulse repetition rates they use to benefit. And I haven't been able to find anything that's really comprehensive on that. So if you ever come up with anything, I'd be happy to learn more about it and share it with other people.
Well, there are a lot of the early translations out of like University of Beijing on electroacupuncture, where they looked at the frequencies, high frequencies suppress, low frequencies tonify, intermediate frequencies harmonize. But I've never even seen good information on the different waveforms, sawtooth, square wave, that sort of stuff. But people refer to it as if there's a gospel there. So I'm curious where that originated.
I agree. The waveform's really important. And if you go to Seqx, S-E-Q-E-X, they have information on the waveforms, and they describe some of them in their manual. So I would suggest that you look that up. And I'm going to go on to the next person. Barb, do you have some more for me?
Yes, I do. From Stephanie McCarter, I believe. I don't know how to pronounce this. Joov lights, J-O-O-V lights are 660 nanometers and 850 nanometers and are popular. Are they helpful?
That would be in the red and infrared part of the spectrum. And yes, red light seems to be very beneficial for treatments. But once again, it's important not to overdo it. Your body is communicating using very subtle intensities. And so you want to make sure that if you're going to benefit your body, you don't overdo it and you use those same subtle exposures for short periods of time.
Okay,
Another
and
one?
one from Linda Vanix. Does copper clothing protect from EMFs or act as an antenna to attract it to the body?
Okay, that's a really good question. Some people have made aprons or underwear. You can actually buy underwear that has silver fiber in it. They don't use copper because copper oxidizes, and so it'll turn green and it won't be as comfortable to wear, obviously. So they often use silver, which doesn't oxidize. The more silver there is, obviously, the more shielding that you can get. Many people they swear by it. They put the material inside a hat, for example, and they don't get headaches. They wear this clothing as a vest, so they wear it outside of their other clothing. It's not in contact with the body, which seems to be critical for some people. But there are some people who can't tolerate it. They put it on and they feel worse. So it's really very much an individual matter, just as with most health issues. We're all individuals, and what affects me a certain way may not affect you in that way exactly. So part of it is trial and error. What I do recommend that in China, for example, they have aprons that they put around a pregnant woman to protect the fetus, to protect the newborn or the, and they do that to minimize the exposure. And that is something that you can do if you happen to be pregnant and if it doesn't make you ill. So it's really much an individualistic thing. Any more? Okay, I'm going to go back to Tom.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just lost my question. I'll come
No
back.
problem. Okay, Barb.
I've got another one from Donna Ott. In the US, when we get into litigation with the utilities, we are being told that we need to use the term electromagnetic sensitivity, which is the ADA US Access Board term accepted in the US. Is there any discussion on getting a universal term that can be used consistently for both medical and legal purposes? It may seem insignificant, but in our state, we've had a difficult time and have to be very careful about everything in our utility cases. They throw out evidence-based cases, especially if the wrong term is used.
Okay, well, there's some debate as to what term should be used. Originally, it was called neurasthenia, which is a nervous disorder, and that was at the turn of the 1900s when telephone operators who were plugging things into a board to connect telephones, they were getting shocked, they were getting sick, and they were having all the symptoms that we now classify as electrohypersensitivity. During the war, it was called either microwave illness or radio wave sickness. So all of these are terms that have been used to describe the same thing. The World Health Organization would prefer to call it idiopathic environmental intolerance, attributed to electromagnetic fields. So if you wanted to use a legal term, that's the term I would recommend, because that's the term the World Health Organization recommends. When they first said that that idiopathic, by the way, means, we don't know the cause. And so when the World Health Organization first came up with this, and it was in 2004 at one of their meetings in Prague on electrohypersensitivity, I thought it was a cop-out. I thought, if you don't know what the cause is, you don't have any responsibility on dealing with it. However, the more I've thought about this, the more I believe that that is the appropriate term. And the reason I say that is, in our research, we're finding that when we ask the question, what causes your electrohypersensitivity? It's not always exposure to electromagnetic fields. For example, if people have had physical trauma to their central nervous system, a concussion, whiplash, for example, they can become electrically hypersensitive. And so if you have whiplash or if you have a concussion, then you need to deal with that in order to minimize your electrosensitivity. If you have toxic chemicals in your body, particularly things like aluminum and mercury and other neurotoxins, then you have to get rid of that before your body is going to benefit by any kind of reduction in your environmental exposure to electrosmog. If you're riddled with parasites, if you have a high yeast content in your body, if you have Lyme disease, for example, then you have to treat that, because I was told that the microbes are actually responding to the electromagnetic pollution and they're releasing more toxins into your body. So getting rid of parasites is very important. And then if you have an impaired immune system, making sure that whatever your doctor tells you on how to improve your immune system is going to benefit. So there are different precursors. I call them precursors rather than causes. And if there are these precursors in your history, then you have to deal with them. And that's where the individualized medicine and healthcare comes in. And so, one shoe won't fit all of us. It's really quite different. So using idiopathic environmental intolerance attributable to electromagnetic fields is probably the one I would use in a legal case. Okay, and we have Ed Friedman.
Hey,
Sorry. Is Ed unmuted?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can, yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. Hey, thank you very much. It's been great. A question. Yesterday, I think it was, you showed a slide of your blood before and after EMF exposure, the dark blood microscopy, the Rouleau syndrome. A few minutes ago, you showed a slide of your blood before and after pulsed EMF. Yesterday, your blood seemed to clump. Today, your blood seemed to loosen up. Can you explain the difference in frequencies, things like that, or something else going on?
Well, what caused my blood to clump was exposure to Wi-Fi at 2.45 gigahertz, just from a regular in-home Wi-Fi unit. Why it clumps, I honestly don't know. I think there's some controversy as to why your blood goes into rouleau. And there's different theories about it, of whether or not there's, chemicals on the outer part of your blood, on the cell membrane, or whether the electrical potential is going down and so cells aren't repelling themselves. It's really something that remains an unknown. When I showed you my blood today after a PEMF treatment, I repeated that a number of times. And when I move away from a computer, my blood improves slightly within 10 minutes, but it doesn't improve as much as with a PEMF treatment. And so one of the things I do periodically is, while I'm working on a computer, I'll have a unit with me, and I'll expose part of my body. If I'm working on the computer a lot, I'll expose part of my body to PEMF for about 10 minutes to basically unclog my circulation and hopefully get a benefit that way.
Okay, well, thank you. That's what's interesting, is that PEMF seems to be good, but straight Wi-Fi, not so good.
Well, I think part of it might be coherence. Remember one of the first lectures I gave, what makes your body coherent? Something that makes your body coherent is actually going to benefit you. If it's causing incoherence, it's going to harm you. And so if you have a PEMF device in your home, it's like music, with a background of noise. And so you're not going to benefit from that music as much. So by getting rid of the noise and just being exposed to the lovely music will benefit your body. And I'm talking not in terms of real music, but rather the coherent frequencies that music would create.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Barb, are there any more questions?
Sure, here's another CME one from Marnie Cook. Functional medicine doctor Jill Carnahan swears by Aries Tech products to protect rooms and the body from EMFs, even 5G, but I get lost reading the tech specs. Do you know if this is worthwhile technology?
The Aries Tech product?
Yes, AIRES.
Right, we actually tested that, but we only tested it on 2 people. One person tended to have more positive responses than negative when we did things like heart rate variability and interstitial scan. So once again, it varies from individual to individual, and you'd have to, have a agreement with the vendor that if it if you don't feel better with it, that you would return it. Now, one concern I have with products that a little sticker that you put on your cell phone or put on the side of your computer is that it might give people a feeling that, okay, now I'm being protected, and they might expose themselves even more to this radiation. So be very careful using these products. They don't go through any kind of testing that I'm aware of with the government. So the claims that they make may or may not be valid. However, I do believe that some of these products work for some people. And we have a question from X. Who is X?
Hi. Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One, I live in a condo building, and different people. It's got two wires. They're using the tubes, the metal tubes as the ground, and there's neutral to ground connections in the various units, and it's causing magnetic fields in my unit. Is there a simple way to figure out where the neutral to ground connections are?
You'd have to hire an electrician to come in and do that. So the neutral is connected to ground at a fuse box, for example. It sounds like you have unbalanced return, and that's creating the high magnetic field. So you'd really have to bring an electrician in to figure out where the problems are.
Most electricians don't know how to do it, is what I found out.
If you contact Dave Stetzer in Wisconsin, he can walk any electrician through and tell them how to do it.
Thank you. The other question I had was the Schumann frequency, which is beneficial. Are any of the blocking techniques that you use block the Schumann frequency?
No, they're blocking microwave radiation, not the natural frequencies from the Earth, as far as I know.
Do these devices that do the Schumann frequency in the house and amplify it, do those tend to have beneficial effects?
Say that again, do the Schumann?
Well, there are some devices you can buy that you can put in your house that generate the Schumann frequency, so it'd be stronger. Have you any research that shows that's beneficial?
I've not seen any research on that at all.
Okay, thank you.
Some of the maps so that you can get actually have Schumann resonance. The Centurion I mentioned has a Schumann resonance, 8 and 15, so it's a first and second harmonic of it. And then the next harmonic as well, 30 hertz. So some of them actually allow you to expose your body to a Schumann frequency. Okay, Tom again.
She's laughing. I have
Hi, so going back to the question comparing PEMF with Wi-Fi, and you said that this is the PEMF is coherent, and yes, we know that coherent waves are cleaner conduits of transmission. Our data point for correlating subjectively feeling improved and some kind of objective measurement has been, the surrogate for that has been rouleau and heart rate variability. Now, most of our indigenous treatments with electrotherapies, so to speak, indigenous, so to speak, have been based upon a feedback system between individuals, the manipulation of the acupuncture needles, clockwise, counterclockwise, depth, speed, that sort of thing. And there's been correlations with like the auricular cardiac reflex or pulse diagnosis. So the question, that being the context, the question is, are there commercial PEMF or light frequency generators that use feedback loops and to enhance the therapeutic effect?
Yes, the answer to that is yes. The IMRS has a little clip that you put on your ear, and that measures your pulse. And so you can change the treatment according to how your body's reacting. The on-demand actually uses the pulse for determining what frequencies seem to be unbalanced in your body and what frequencies you require. So that's another one. And the C-Kicks, originally, they have a technique where they determine what frequency you need, and then they make you a little card that you plug into your own home unit that will treat those frequencies. You do that for a few weeks and then you get reassessed again. So there are at least 3 I know of who use this biofeedback and assess what you actually need.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any more questions? We've got 15 minutes left in our session together. I could open it up, and if people wanted to share good news stories with us, that would be a lovely way to use the last few minutes of our time together. Would anyone like?
I have one from Dr. Toril Gelter.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Have you done any research on biophoton therapy with children? Some of my patients with EHS have benefited.
I haven't done any research with biophotons. You need special equipment that's quite costly that I can't afford. Most of the research on biophotons has been done in Germany, and I don't know of any specific studies with children and electrohypersensitivity, but that would be a fascinating area to conduct research in.
Shall I keep going? Oh, Cheryl's got her hand up, Cheryl Hamilton.
Okay, Cheryl?
Thank you. I'm confused about the electric current going into a lamp or other device and the electromagnetic field and the difference between the effects of those 2 types of frequencies on the human body.
Okay, you're confused about the current going into a lamp and then the electromagnetic field?
Mm-hmm. And their influence on biological life. So are they the same? Have they been studied differently? And I also understood that as long as the lamp was plugged in, there's a current that still flows to where that on-off switch is. So it's coming through the cord, and that produces current that is then trying to ground somewhere if it's not able to complete the circuit. So that could be grounding into the home, as well as the electromagnetic field that's always present if the appliance is plugged in.
Okay, there's some misinformation there. So if you have a lamp and you plug it into an electric outlet, but the lamp is off, there is no current flow. Absolutely none from that from that plug-in to the lamp. As soon as you turn the lamp on, you've opened the circuit, and now there's electrons flowing. And not only do you have an electric field, so if it's turned off, you have an electric field. It's not a magnetic field, it's a different field. It's also potentially harmful. So you don't want to be close to electronic equipment, even when it's, not functioning because of that electric field. You can put the wire into a conduit that will shield the electric field when you have things plugged in. So if you're extremely sensitive, or for anyone building a new home and making it as good for electrosensitive people as possible, and for the rest of us who don't want to become electrosensitive, then you can put the wires into a conduit, and this will shield the electric field. As soon as you turn that lamp on, you now have a magnetic field, and that magnetic field is very difficult to shield. There's something called mu metal that will shield it. It's very costly, and it's not something that you would use for a lamp, for example. It's something that I recommend they put into cars, electric cars that have the batteries in the back. Those should actually be shielded with this mu metal, and the conduit going from the battery to the engine should be shielded so that the magnetic fields in cars are much reduced.
Okay, and on that subject of shielding, as far as the millimeter wave frequencies from the 5G and above, have you seen any studies on the materials that can actually block those?
No, and we're trying to figure out what will block them. There's so little research done in that area. There's some research done. Cindy Russell, by the way, wrote an absolutely excellent paper on 5G and the research, and that's going to be part of what you end up getting from me in the handouts for the references. Really excellent, and it's been used to a certain degree in medicine in a very positive way for very short-term exposure. So the real issue with this millimeter wave constant exposure to anything is not good for any of us. Even constant exposure to sunlight, we have to have darkness in order to reset ourselves. So it's that constant exposure that seems to be a problem. And unfortunately, once they start rolling out the millimeter waves, once we have meters that will measure them, we'll be able to determine, the answers to some of these questions. Right now, it's just pure guesswork.
And you mentioned that clothing, so the like probably polyester clothing, maybe, I'm not sure, does it have more of a plus charge? We do better in the negatively charged. So yesterday when you mentioned that, I had a polyester blouse on, I changed it and I felt better. Have you seen anything in that regard?
That's a very interesting, thank you for sharing that. If you wear cotton, for example, or wool, you won't have that problem if you are sensitive, extremely sensitive. Yeah, polyester, it's an artificial product, but obviously a lot of clothing is made of it, so it's hard to avoid, but cotton and wool tend to be much better. Flannel, for example, is really, really good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Jeffrey, I'm going to lower your hand and unmute you. Whoops. Did I unmute the right people? Jeffrey? Nope. Okay, let's go to Igor.
Hello, Magda.
Yep.
I have one question. What do you think about earthing when we sleep, but in two different situations? Situation one is if we sleep in the room where is a lot of electrosmog around us. And the situation two is the sleeping room without electrosmog.
Okay, so you asked about earthing. Can you just
yes, but we have two different situations. Situation one is that this sleeping room have a lot of radiation around us. The situation two is sleeping room without any electricity.
Okay, in a room where you don't have a lot of electricity around you, you're going to equilibrate a lot more with your environment. And so you're not going to build up a charge on your body. One of the things I've been told is that electricians, when they come home, some of them, when they come home, they want to basically get rid of any kind of charge they may have on their body, and they stand on a metal plate barefoot. And this should, drain some of the excess electrons if they happen to have excess electrons. And we've done some testing where people have worked on a computer and they build up this charge on their body and they can't discharge. And so by not being able to discharge, you're going to end up with some, potential biological responses. So being able to discharge is really, really important. You could do it with a metal plate, as I've just mentioned. One of the things I like to do is I like to go out in my backyard and I like to hug a tree. And, that might sound a little silly, but those trees are really well grounded. They've got a root system that goes quite deep. And simply by, being in physical contact with that tree, we are exchanging electrons, and that tree is at a natural frequency, and I may not be because of my exposure to electrosmog. And so this is one way for people to ground themselves.
Thank you.
Okay, and Marnie? Marnie? Nope. Okay, Jeffrey?
Okay. Can you hear me this time?
Yeah, who is this, Jeffrey?
This is Jeff, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Great, well, okay, so anecdotally, I used to have problems wearing synthetic fabrics and it would manifest in asthma and some behavioral symptoms. That was a long time ago, and I just told my family to switch everything to cotton, and a lot of that abated, and I still get reactions from even smelling PVC related items. I work with switchboards and things like that for audio purposes, and I can tell when I don't know if it's off gassing or whatever the case may be, but synthetics can be problematic. I wonder if there's anything that we can do about that. But my main question is, you mentioned information transmission through light and that sort of thing, and that was one of your presenters was looking into that, and exhibited something coming through actual sound, actual music coming through light. And I believe that that can happen. I wonder if there's any like sort of translating technology that can do that bidirectionally or even unidirectionally from light to sound and from sound to light, where that might be might have therapeutic applications. I mean, is there anything commercially available for that?
Well, actually, the person, Dieter Jossner, who gave that demonstration in Germany, he, when we were there, he told us a story that I found really intriguing. There was a man who was in a coma, and he had been in the coma for quite a few months. And they decided to put this expose him to laser light, red laser light, that they modulated with music that he used to love when he was younger. And no one could hear the music, didn't come into the room. It was modulated on the light, and they just exposed his face to this frequency. They did it for several days, and he came out of the coma like a few days later. So, I mean, something like that is absolutely miraculous. And, I don't know if it's published or anything, but something like that really needs to be looked at much more carefully. So when it comes to, can you use it? Yes, I think you can take any of the light technology that you end up using. You can have that, you can get that modulated and maybe have even a greater benefit, but you have to know what the modulation frequency is. And I don't know enough about, that to figure out what should be exposed, what a person should be exposed to in order to benefit them in different ways. So that's something we really need to better understand. If there's people here who are, who know that information, please share it with everyone, including me, because that's absolutely critical for what we're talking about.
Yeah, I would love that.
Okay, and X, we'll try you again. Can someone unmute X? No.
So Magda, please leave their hand up. Don't lower it, because then it drops in the top. We lose them.
Got it. Okay. So X, if you want to raise your hand again, or anyone else who has a question.
I've got one from Toril Gelter.
Okay, let's just give X a chance, because that person's been trying to get on for a bit. X? No. Okay, Marnie, let's try you. Marnie?
X can talk.
Oh, X?
Yeah, just want to pass along. You were talking about it's hard to block magnetic. I did talk to someone who had problems with magnetic fields in cars, and they took a flexible sheet of the magnetic shield, and he wrapped each wire in it, and that blocked the field. And so you could probably do that in the house too if you had something particular. So you don't use as much of the material that way.
Right. That's a good idea. Thank you very much. Okay, Sarah Rogers. Sarah?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is actually a question. One of my colleagues is a massage therapist, and she's really gotten into using tuning forks in her practice. And she's found an amazing success. Have you done any research on that regarding, and she's electromagnetic sensitive. She can't even hold a cell phone in her hands.
Right. So when you're talking about tuning forks, you're really talking about sound therapy as opposed to electromagnetic therapy. And there's a lot of research done looking at sound as a way to help people heal. One of the most interesting studies I found recently is that at the University of Toronto, they're doing research with 40 hertz. That's 40 cycles per second, and using sound vibration, so a physical vibration. They found that Alzheimer's patients have don't have this 40 frequency in their brain. And so they wanted to find out if they introduced 40 frequency as a sound vibration, would it help people with Alzheimer's disease? And they've done research with laboratory animals and found that it actually slows down the rate of Alzheimer's progression quite considerably. And you can now buy backrests that have a vibration in there, a sound vibration in the backrest, and you can tune it to 40 hertz. And while you're working, turn that on and give your body a bath in 40 hertz sound frequency. And that seems to have some potentially beneficial effects. They haven't been able to reverse Alzheimer's in humans, but they're having a little bit of success with rodents at the moment. Okay, we have 2 more questions and then we'll end this session. So we'll go to Larry, and I've just unmuted you. Larry? No? Okay, Ed Friedman for the last question.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
So,
Okay. Just could you clarify Dieter Jostner's light noise detector? Was that just measuring power quality or dirty electricity? And if so, then I assume we could use a transistor radio the same way for a relative indicator.
Okay, it wasn't measuring dirty electricity. It was actually measuring light frequencies, and it used a photoreceptor in it. There's a company in Canada that light detector is absolutely excellent, and I think we paid 500 euros for it, so it's very, very expensive. There's a company in Quebec called, I think the name of the product is this Lightbee, I think, yeah, Lightbee, L-I-G-H-T, B as in the flying insect, B-E-E. And we'll put the information in the chat and send it out to everyone who's interested. So this Lightbee will do the same thing. It costs about $100 Canadian, so it's about $20 American. And you can just basically hold it up to a light source and it will tell you if your computer screen is flickering, if light bulbs are flickering, and it's really worth having. Anyone who's doing any kind of monitoring inside buildings, the building biologist should be measuring light flicker. And I believe that safelivingtechnology.co, that's a sponsor to the medical conference that we have in January, they also sell a model that will measure light flicker. So it's not measuring dirty power, it's actually measuring light flicker.
Thank you.
And Larry's the last one, is that? Larry?
yes, I have a question about a story that I want to share. I have a good friend who lives in Durham, North Carolina, near Duke University, and he was having frequent arrhythmias, cardiac arrhythmias, and he went to Duke Hospital, and they said, we have a surgical procedure that will help you avoid having these arrhythmias. We will ablate the parts of your aorta that are sensitive to electromagnetic fields. And then you will tolerate your Wi-Fi and the Wi-Fi that is at your office. And so he went into the hospital last December, and they ablated his aorta so that it would be less sensitive to microwaves. And although they didn't phrase it that way, they just ablated his aorta, the aortic rhythmic sensitive areas. And he told me that the doctors told him that this was a common procedure, especially at Duke University, where
And now he has a pacemaker.
Yes. And now he has a pacemaker, and he continues to be able to work in the high Wi-Fi environment, and thus he has a hope for getting a pension someday. And well, then recently he was told by other people at Nuke who are into natural treatments that he had parasites, intestinal parasites, and needed to take the anti-parasitic natural herbs that they were recommending. And he has done that. But I began wondering whether the parasites might have been there even before the arrhythmias were, because he has been made so ill by the anti-parasitic herbs that he can no longer take them. And so he's not taking any treatment for his parasites, and he's using a pacemaker so that he can tolerate the
Okay,
high.
I'm going to sort of end this because we've actually run over time, but I want to thank you for sharing that. I'm not a cardiologist, so I don't have any comments about any of this. It's totally out of my area of expertise, but thank you for sharing. It's interesting to know that this is being done on a fairly regular basis and quite disturbing. Okay, we've come to the end of our 3-hour session and the 2-day course. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for participating in the chats and in the lecture. I'd particularly like to thank Ben Levi, who's been behind the scenes, making sure that everything's going well and that my microphone's off when it should be off. To Bart Payne for handling all the chat questions. I know they've been coming in fast and furious. Ariane Glazier, who's been behind the scenes for months, making sure that this is going to work well and sending you information. She's going to send you more information in a few weeks. Sheena Symington, who's behind the scenes answering questions as well. And I'd particularly like to thank Libby Kelly, who's the key organizer of the EMF Medical Conference to be held in January 2021. I mentioned earlier today that this course is intended to complement the conference, not to replace it. There's going to be some fascinating lectures and some amazing people participating. And I hope that if those of you who are interested in this and haven't yet signed up, that you'll sign up. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much. And I hope you all have a lovely day wherever you are on this beautiful planet.